Wake up this morning, it's time to be encouraged. Wake up this afternoon, it's time to be encouraged. Wake up this evening, it's time to be encouraged. It's time to be encouraged. It's time for you to learn how to encourage yourself. Encourage yourself to be mentally strong, to help make your family strong, to make you to be a social giver, giving back, to be encouraged by giving to others, by making a difference in somebody's life. We need encouragement more than ever, and we're on the Encouragement Conquers All podcast, and we have another guest on to encourage you, to help you. And I think he's going to help you in your career, in your finances. He's going to help you with empathy. He's going to help you to be a better person. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what your creed is. I promise you, you need encouragement. And right here, right now is where you're going to get the encouragement. Let's welcome our guest because he's going to help us. If you haven't checked out other guests, though, make sure we have, so many podcasts you can go to. So many podcasts. I think we're up to over 40 podcasts that you can go to. And we just started this. And why do we start this? We started this podcast because who's talking about encouragement? Every time I encourage somebody, 9 times out of 10, they love it. So if they love it, why are they craving it so much? They're craving it because they're waiting for you to listen to this podcast, share this podcast, let other people know about this podcast, that you're a part of the encouragement podcast. And you know what? Who's encouraging people more than we are? You're a part of this, and you can share this with your friends, your family. You can go on YouTube. You can subscribe now, and you can be a part of encouragement for all. Now, you might not believe what I believe. If you don't know who I am, I'm a believer. I have faith. That's my I have faith, in God. I have faith in people. I have faith in humanity. I believe that we were made and created for something good. But if you believe nothing of what I believe, I hope you still want to be a part of this network. Why? Because you're about encouragement. And the guest we are going to have on after you've subscribed, after you've been a part of this network, after you've found a way to learn how to encourage. Now, if you don't have your journal, right? I know all of you should have a journal. If you don't have one yet, go get a journal, put encouragement in there and the 6 different ways we can be stronger in encouragement. And if you don't know those ways, right? Number 1, physically. Number 2, mentally. Number 3, socially. Number 4, in your family. Number 5, in your career or your finances. And number 6, socially, by giving back to others. So guess what? That's how we can stay encouraged. We can keep encouraged physically, mentally, in your family, spiritually, socially, and in your career. Put those in a journal, right? And every podcast you listen to, go back to your journal, or after the podcast, if you're in your car, right? Or if you don't have your journal, listen to it. And each guest is going to give you more tools, more skills on probably 1 or 2 of these different ways to stay encouraged. Because to encourage, we need to stay encouraged. Now, this is my 3rd time saying I'm going to welcome the guest. So this time I'm going to do it. And today we're thrilled to have Drew Donaldson. What Drew Donaldson is, he helps you get cash. I don't know about you, but right now in this country with inflation, with everything going on, Drew Donaldson's going to help us find a way, to maximize our career. And he's going to help us in our career, and for us personally to be stronger in our future. Financially. He's a serial entrepreneur and the founder of GroHaus. Join us to share his journey founding a model agency dedicated to helping skilled professionals achieve an unprecedented success. Get ready to be inspired by his innovative approach to entrepreneurship. I love entrepreneurs. Now, bring Drew on. Drew, great to have you on, by the way.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate your energy in opening this show, man. Holy cow. I'm going to have to, I had to get all pepped up. I was like about to relax, come in for a nice, low-key chat. But boy, you bring the energy, man.
Well, encouragement, to have encouragement, you got to be enthusiastic. Even if I mean nothing, at least something's excited about it, right? Even if like it's not good, but you're going to help bring sense to all of this encouragement. And a model agency, what's that about?
So
What's this process that you have?
Yeah, so it's a new model agency. So
Okay.
the traditional model agency is, think of it like almost like a big box store, right? So you're a business, you walk into a big box store and you have a shopping list of all the things you need. And then you take all the things off the shelf and you go up to the checkout and then they say, "Okay, that'll be $15,000 a month." And you, the startup entrepreneur, looks at that and goes, "What? Like, I can't afford. I'm just getting started. How am I supposed to spend $15,000 a month on this stuff?" And so that has traditionally kept out a lot of entrepreneurs from the agency system because they're just, that's just the price. That's what it costs to work with a big agency. And so over the years, there's been like the local small business agency, and they'll just do search engine marketing or local service ads or whatever. And so they'll specialize in specific things, but they're not going to give you everything. So if you need everything, your only other option was the big box store. But the problem with both of those models is that the big box store is too expensive. The specialist is obviously going to sell you their specialty because that's the only thing they have to sell. So what we do as a new model agency is we actually look at your business and in a holistic light and say, well, what is the thing that's actually going to move the needle for you? Because I love paid media for my business. I spend a fortune in paid media because there's huge ROI for me. That's not the case for a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses should not be doing paid media, not just because they can't afford it, but because it's not the best way for them to get clients. And so instead of me coming in and being like, well, we're a paid media agency, so every problem is a nail, so every solution needs a hammer. It's like, no, well, sometimes your problem is, so unique that we need to go, well, you know what? We're not going to do paid media for you because it doesn't make sense. But what we are going to do is we're going to write an outreach sequence to help you build relationships with decision makers on a one-on-one level, because that makes a lot more sense. That moves the needle a lot better in your favor. So that's really what a new model agency is designed to do. It's designed to work with specific, I work in the service-based business community. It's designed to look at their business holistically and say, well, this is what you actually need to grow, not just, hey, I do paid media, so let's do paid media.
Yeah, so look at everybody as the listeners here. There are people that are coming on here, and they, whatever it is, whether it's they're a father, a mother, they're a friend, but everybody's an entrepreneur. Let's break down for you entrepreneurship. Like for me, entrepreneurship is that you believe in something so much that you'll go to the nth degree so that somebody will receive your product, receive what you believe in, that's my definition, that you believe this. My dad was an entrepreneur, and he always tells me, he goes, look, you're the best entrepreneur I met because nobody can stop you. Like you're like unstoppable. And to be an entrepreneur, I think you have to have that spirit that you believe in your product, or you believe in your service so much that you're unstoppable. How do you help these? I mean, come on, entrepreneurship with inflation, everything going on. This is difficult right now. How do you help people stay encouraged to be unstoppable, to make money? I mean, if you don't figure that out, Drew, these people are discouraged right now. So encourage these people.
I mean, it's really interesting you say that, because I think for a lot of people who are not entrepreneurs, do not have the entrepreneur bone in their body, entrepreneurship looks a lot like mental illness. Like it's kind of like psychosis. It's like,
Yeah.
why are you are taking such big risks for so little gain, and you're doing it over and you fail. And like, think of how many people fail on a diet and then never do it again. Right?
Yep.
Like that's how the majority of people are. So entrepreneurs are a special breed of crazy. Like they have to be so passion driven and dream driven that they go, no, it doesn't matter if I fail 15 times in a row, because I have a good feeling on 16. I have a good feeling on 17. I have a good feeling on 18. And you just keep getting up. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like one of the when I was in high school, I got into a lot of fights like when I was like a freshman and sophomore.
Oh yeah, me and you were
But the
similar. All right, I like that.
yeah,
It was always
but the
fun. We
reason
always take the big guy. I always take the big guy on because I always won, even if I lost.
and I was big, so that's why a lot of people wanted to go up against me. And even though they might have been smaller, stronger, faster, the reason why people stopped picking on me later in my school career was because I kept getting up. I wouldn't stay down. And that's a threat, right? Like when you can't be held down, when you keep getting up and you get hit in the mouth and you get back up and you're like, all right, let's go again. That's the kind of thing that people start recognizing and going, oh, this guy's serious. Like,
Yeah,
this
why
is
do you think they love Rocky Balboa? Why do you think everybody
exactly.
Because you feel like it. It's so like hyperbole. That's like the most hyperbole movie because it's not realistic. Like my brother used to always tell me, he goes, "Why do you like Rocky? He's not real. You know this, right?" Yeah.
Yeah. And,
So how
but
do you
that's
keep going? How do you keep going?
well, so you were talking about encouragement as energy before, and I think that's
Yeah.
really true because encouragement isn't one thing to everybody. Like I was just thinking about this the other day. I've been doing like on a really strict diet and weight training regimen since the beginning of the year, and I told one of my friends / clients about this, and he said when I told him like, well, here's what my schedule is and here's what I'm doing, he's like, good luck, man, but you're not going to stick with it. And I was like, you don't think so? He's like, it's way too tough. He's like, you're going to burn out and you're not going to do it. That little piece of doubt, that was a throwaway. We moved on. We talked about every morning when I get up and I go, I don't really feel like. I think about him saying that.
You put his picture on the wall. You're like, I'm going to get my friend.
And I get into the gym and I knock out my sets. And I think so that's a little bit of energy. And even though it's negative energy, like you could look at that and be like, oh, how terrible for your friend to do that. It was actually the nicest thing he could have done because I feed off of doubt. I love when people doubt me. I love being the underdog. I love when people say, yeah, it's not going to work. I grew my first several businesses because people told me I couldn't do it. And I was like, oh, really? I can't do it. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough skill, whatever. Watch me. So
that's unbelievable. I love that.
A lot of times encouragement can be the you mentioned empathy earlier. It can be like, listen, man, it's all right. You can have another bite at the apple, like get back on the horse. It can be that positive. But you can also find encouragement in people doubting you, people saying you're not good enough. Like use that. Don't sit and dwell on what other people think. Use that as fuel for the fire to be like, no, I'm gonna prove them wrong. Because there's nothing better than the mental win that you get when you can think back to someone who told you, like, I had a teacher in the 7th grade that said, again, it's like it sticks with you, but you can use it as fire. She's like, well, the world needs ditch diggers too, because I was failing. Yeah,
you know where she got that quote from? Do you know where she got it from?
No.
Do you know where that quote comes from? It comes from the golf movie back in the day, a Caddyshack.
Oh,
that's where
really?
It comes from. She stole that. She gave you the.
So it wasn't even original.
1-2. She gave you the. So what happened after? Do you hear that in your?
Again, like I for all accounts and purposes, I mean, I'm a success. So it's like it's when you take in that kind of negative energy from someone, you really have two choices. You can either use it in a positive way to encourage your growth, to be like, no, I'm going to push through, I'm going to prove them wrong, or you can dwell on it, and it can be that sore spot where it's like you're talking about boxing earlier. It's like working someone's ribs until they quit. And it's like that sore spot that you're guarded against because it just sticks with you. You have to just use it. You have to flip it on its head, and you have to say, no, that's the way. I'm going to use that as my encouragement. I'm going to say, no, I'm going to get real. I'm going to get real visceral about taking this and making it work for me instead of work against me.
So share about your success a little bit, just so our listeners know, like, what is success for you? Like success for me, everybody has differences. Like success for me is basically to fail so miserably in a beautiful sense that I believe in something so much that I'm willing to fail so much that all of a sudden people go, why was he willing to give up everything for truth and beauty and goodness and kindness and self-control and like all these things that people don't count as valuable in the world? For me, that is the greatest encouragement, that they would watch me. Why would he be willing to give up everything for what is good and noble? So my success, I'm probably not going to see in this world. I really believe that I'm not, and I'm okay with that. I'm sure I'll have, success. I've had films on my life, and I've had books written, and I could say that's success, but I don't look at that as success. For me, I look at success is that you're willing to give up everything you are for the greater good of humanity. And even if you're looked at as a failure, that when you're dead, they'll probably say you're a success when you're not even around. And they're like, whoa, that was unbelievable. And so that's so my first question, share a little bit about some of the worldly successes you had, and then share what you think success is for you personally.
Well, I think, I started my businesses, my kind of entrepreneurship right out of college. I actually started my first two businesses while I was still in college. And that was, at the time, entrepreneurship was not as popular as it is today, right? There was no Gary Vee back then. There was no Alex Hormozy or any of these kind of entrepreneurship gurus. Even Grant Cardone was still selling cars back then. Like, he was doing sales training for car dealerships. So there was just no real entrepreneur community yet. And so starting a business when you're 21 is like, it's just kind of like, what a weirdo. Like, why are you doing that? Like, everybody else is going and working for Sony.
We're similar in that. We're similar. That's the same time I started. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just knew from the get-go that I was not built to work for other people in an office. Like, I don't have office mentality. I don't have cubicle mentality. Like, I have to set my own hours. I have to figure out who I want to work with in terms of my own clients. I can't have just work handed to me and be happy with it.
Yeah, that's what I want. All our staff, if they want to have their own hours, once they have that, they build up that, rapport. I want them to work whatever they want.
Right, because it's just it's better for your mental health and well-being, even though there are significant risks. What's funny about entrepreneurship is that, like, it's actually a lot less risky than taking a 9-to-5, because when you take and this is just a tangent here, but when you take a 9-to-5, you are betting everything on that job, right? And if you get fired, everything goes away. If I lose a client, yeah, that hurts my pocketbook, right? But at the same time, I would have to lose all of my clients to meet the risk level of taking a day job, right? Because
unless you work for an entrepreneur, though, because true entrepreneurs want to train like every one of their staff members to have that same mentality. And I believe that everybody can learn how to be an entrepreneur. Do you think that's true?
I think so. I don't think it's an education issue. I think it's a motivation issue. I think there's a lot of people that just don't have the intestinal fortitude and the motivation to actually be an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneur is really sexy because of all these influencers out there that make it look really sexy. But entrepreneurship is a lot of work. It's a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of like sleepless nights where you don't know if you're going to be able to make payroll. So like, if you can't stomach that, looking at a 9-to-5 is like, well, I only have to worry about one thing there. I just have to worry about keeping my boss happy there. That's a lot less stress. So like, I think anyone could be an entrepreneur as long as the motivation is there and the guts are there.
But, I love that. So go back to your success. Share a little bit about that. I'm interested.
So I struggled for a long time, and I was in the film and television arena, and I was trying to start a video production company. And my video production business was a failure. I mean, we made money, we did projects. I did projects.
Great job, Drew. Great job. Keep it up.
But I did. It wasn't a success, and I was like, I am working so hard at this. I don't understand how this can't be successful. I won these awards. I have these big clients. Like I've shot for these major institutions that are well known, and yet I'm barely like making ends meet. And I started looking at my competition. I looked at some of the guys who had won projects over me, and I said, they're doing something differently. And it's not that they're going out and, shooting every bar mitzvah that comes their way. Like, that's not what they're doing. They're going and shooting professional work all the time, but their quality isn't as good. And I know that they don't take as much care in terms of scripting, because I've seen the outcome of the work and it's not terribly good. So something is different. And I landed that it must be marketing. I must just not know how to market as well as they do. And so I made it my mission to just learn that. And so I would say the number, that was really a turning point for me, because the more I learned about marketing, the more I became obsessed with it. And the more I was like, oh, this is really powerful. Like, knowing this skill set has the potential to make a lot of money a lot quicker, and I don't have to haul around video gear. And so as I started like mentally thinking like, well, how do I pivot this into marketing? I had a video client, and he was asking like, hey, now that we have this video done, what do I do with it? And I spent like 3 hours with this guy, like devising a marketing strategy for this set of videos we shot. And at the end of it, he was like, you should probably charge me for this. And I was like, for what? He's like, well, for like helping me build all this. And that was the first time I ever thought like, oh, I could do consulting. Like, I could just sell that. And so that was a big pivot that I now thought, okay, I need to figure out how I can leave production behind and move closer and closer to strategy. And so that became kind of my mission. And so I took a position at a university and helped them build a video department. And then I pivoted that into an ad agency and started doing management of productions at a higher level. And then I pivoted into marketing consulting and kind of took all those skills I had been building over the past 4 or 5 years and leveraged it to really do that final switch from, hey, I'm a production guy, to, hey, I'm a strategy guy. And then once I had done that for a number of years, that's when I launched GroHaus. And so it was, I don't look at any of those things. I mean, you can look at them in the time as like, oh, is this a success? You got that job, you got that contract, you got that project. But I see all of those as just stepping stones, just like I see this business as a stepping stone to the next thing. Because when I think of success, the way I define it isn't a dollar amount or annual revenue or profit margins or anything like that. What I'm most proud of is my wife doesn't have to work. Not many people can say that. Yeah. I find that is the thing I'm most proud of, that my wife gets to stay home all day with my daughter. My daughter doesn't have to go to daycare. She doesn't have to go to a stranger's house. My wife can do whatever.
I believe that's the way it should be, Guy. Or I'm not going to judge any guy staying home either. But I'll tell you what, why would I want to spend tens of thousands of dollars to somebody else to raise my kid? I don't mean to judge everybody out there. I'm encouraging you to do what Drew's doing. I'm with you, man. That's unbelievable.
But that's the thing I'm most proud of. Like, I have generated millions of dollars in sales for my clients. It does not mean a hill of
clients, Drew. Who are some of your clients?
Oh, well, so back in my consulting days, I was working for brands that are really well known. So like Mass Mutual, Voya Investment, Franklin Templeton, like a lot of big banks. Campbell's Soup, I shot a commercial for. Durex, Durex condoms, I actually shot a commercial 4 years ago.
Oh. I don't like the goalie. I'm not a goalie fan. I like making as many kids as I can. I like to take the goalie out. You know what I mean? I like to run my life like the NHL with 2 minutes left. You know what I mean? Take the goalie out. We're going for free.
But I mean, so that was back in my days of when I was in video production and kind of making this transition. Once I started this agency, I'm working for a lot of smaller entrepreneurs, so I'm not having like huge as big clients anymore, but I still do have some pretty big brands come through. So we had a pretty well-known matcha tea company come through last year. That was a client for a while. Big Brothers Big Sisters is one of our current clients here in the Northeast. So I mean, we do have some of those big names, but most of the people I would mention, you'd never know them, because in their world, they're important. For their clients, they're important, but they're not big name brands. But that's the great thing about entrepreneurship, is you don't need to be a big name brand. You don't need everybody to know who you are.
So my question for you is, this is about encouragement. I want, look, at the end of the day, I want every guest, every listener, even you, we're like brother. I mean, I know you don't know me. We might never meet anybody in person. Maybe you'll have me come out and hang out with your family one day. Who knows? But at the end of the day, whether it's a guest or it's a listener, encouragement is encapsulated by this. When you're 80 years old, 90, whatever it is, let's hope you make it to 100. My grandma's 105. You got to check her episode out. She's a hot mama. She's solid. I mean, she's solid lady. She turns 105 in June, so I'm pumped. I've been saying she's 105 forever. I want her to be the oldest person ever. That's my dream. She's like, don't curse me. She's like, don't curse me. But when it's all said and done, Drew, I see my dad, who did really well, like yourself, and he always tells me, and I don't, and this has just been recent, because he really struggled with what I did with my life, because he goes, you could have made so much money. And I've kind of like put money aside. There's nothing wrong with making tons of money, there's nothing wrong with that. Just to help kids, to help people, to care for others, right? I made that my primary focus. So you're 80, 90 years old, right? And you do well or whatever it is. What matters? Because I believe the same thing at 80 that should matter, like your wife, like your daughter, is the same thing that should matter when you're grossing the most funds coming through, right? It should be on the same plane. But most people don't look at life like that. They look at life as, when you're retired, then you care about giving back, the social giving. Then you care about fitness and going and playing pickleball or whatever they're doing, right? So what do you think matters when it's all said and done? There people are at your casket, they're walking by you. What's most important for you, Drew?
Well, I mean, what's going to determine how many people show up at your funeral is impact. That's the reality. You go and see, like, when a big movie star singer dies, and you see that there's like hundreds of thousands of people at their funeral. It's not because all of those people are just there to show off their funeral fit. Like, that's not it. They're there because that person had a tremendous impact on their life, right? Like, that's the big thing. There's two sides of success. There's personal success, which is, I made the money I wanted to. I lived the life I wanted to. I bought the fancy car I wanted to. You can't take any of that with you, right? And no one's going to remember your personal successes. No one's going to remember that you bench pressed, twice your body. Like, it doesn't matter, right? Unless that was your impact, was that you were some kind of like bodybuilder.
Unless you're Arnold. Arnold.
Exactly. It's going to be, how many people did you help? How many people did you help, change their life, help send their kids to college? One of the reasons, like, I gave up working for corporations and decided to work with entrepreneurs is because the impact mentally of someone telling you that because of how we help them grow their business, they can now send their kid to college is way more impactful to me than a 2% marginal increase on some corporation's bottom line that they're probably just going to, waste on some marketing experiment down the line. Like, it just doesn't, there's no impact there. But that person who had a struggling business and is now making money, like, we just had someone come through who, and I'm not going to air his dirty laundry or anything, but he was a new client, came through at the beginning of the year. He said, listen, if we don't turn this around in 6 months, I'm going to close my doors, right? We got him a 4x return on his marketing investment in 3 months. He's doing fine. He just called me the other day. He's like, so, like, can we increase the budgets? Like, can we spend more? Like, I'm making a lot more money now. Like, how can we grow even more? It's like, no, I changed that guy's life. That makes that's way more meaningful to me than any number in my bank account could ever be.
Yeah, and I just for thinking, this isn't. I'm all about don't judge, be curious. And so I just have a question for you. So, like, I got this kid, right? He's on my basketball team. I coach basketball. That's part of. We have a part of this podcast is a lot of people, will and are going to see. We have a 6 episode docuseries coming out on my team. that was filmed for 2 years. This is my third film that we've done, and it's gonna impact a lot of lives. People like How's it going? It's Justin Fatica, and I can tell you I'm so thankful for your encouraging messages and engagement and joining us for our videos that we hope are bringing you encouragement when you need it most. Now, before you go, I want to tell you about some exciting news. Since I was 19 years old, it's my dream to build facilities for kids. Well, that dream is happening. It's a place where young people and their families can relax, socialize, work out, be encouraged, that they can make a difference in somebody's life every day or have their lives be impacted. That's where we need you. We need you to ask yourself if you'd like to help us to break ground. You can be a part of this mission within less than 1 year. But if we don't have help, we can't do this. Now, I know right now there are a lot of people struggling, but we're just looking for pocket change, a rainy day fund, or to connect us with partners who can help make this dream a reality. We want every single kid and every single family to know they're amazing. And it starts with you. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content so we can keep you updated, so you can keep us going. And together, remember, we are making a lasting impact. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your support, and stay encouraged. And never forget, you were made for an amazing day, and it starts with what lives within you. You're amazing. Shaq are interested in help because it's not about who's the top AAU kid. It's more about these regular, everyday Joe kids, regular AAU team, and their life. A kid was homeless, and he now he has figured it out. He's getting all A's and B's, and he's also becoming a great leader. He wants to be a father and a husband, and he's playing D2 basketball, JUCO basketball. So he's doing really well. Point is, one of my players' mothers, her name's Tyresha. She's like one of my heroes. Because I don't know if she's going to have thousands of people, probably not at her funeral. She probably could have 5 to 100, right? 100's on the max. And I talk about her because she's a hero. She took care of this kid by herself. You know what I mean? And you talk about empathy, and I know you have empathy because I could see it in your eyes, and I know you're sincere in how you care for your clients, and I love that. But for me, that she hasn't given up on her son despite she had every reason to. She's got all the cards against her. For me, she's the person that we need to raise up on high in our country and go, that's a hero right there. And my extreme example of that is, for me, I'm a follower. I've dedicated my life to Jesus, right? So for me, Jesus had 3 people at his funeral. 3.
Yeah.
And I think about that often, just him as a person. Forget whether you think he's God or Savior. We won't get into that, today or whatever. But that is remembered way more than, I don't even know. We know Caesar, of course. He'd probably be the other political figure at that time that was remembered. But outside of Caesar and Jesus, who's remembered from that time? And with the Colosseums being packed, I'm sure there was some, a hell of a good entrepreneurs packing those Colosseums, watching people get killed, you know what I mean? And what have you. So just using those 2 examples, what are your thoughts about those 2 stories? And I'm just, look, it's just like any podcast. I'm always looking how are we going to encourage this country? How are we going to encourage the world?
Well, I think the big thing, it still goes back to impact, because both of those people had tremendous impact, but one of them had impact in their time that was kind of limited to their time, right? There are a lot of things Caesar did that we still use today, right? He oversaw the expansion of Rome to its heights. A lot of people consider kind of the fall of Rome to happen after Caesar was murdered. So there's a lot to be said about his impact long term, but there is also a reason why we don't celebrate his birthday, or we don't celebrate the day he was killed the way we do Easter or Christmas. The reality is his impact was localized to that arena, and yes, people did mourn Caesar. In Shakespeare's Caesar, there's the whole speech with not Brutus, the I forget. I just read I read it like a week ago, and I can't remember his name. But he gives a speech, the friend's Roman countryman. Like he talks about how he's mourning Caesar because Caesar might not have been great, but he did do some good things, and we should still mourn him. So yes, he maybe some of the decisions we didn't like, maybe some of the things we didn't agree with, but that impact was felt then. It's the impact of Jesus continues to this day. So I mean, that's the I think if you're a Christian, you always are reminded to model yourself after Jesus and after the lessons he taught and the morals he preached and all of that. But I think the big thing that you need to remember is that even if, first off, none of us are perfect, so trying to replicate the perfect man is not. It's an honorable endeavor, but it's not a goal. It's not an attainable goal. But it just goes to show that like impact can be at a small level, like you're the mother. Just impacting one person that then goes on to impact hundreds is still an exponential impact that person has. Like, Napoleon Hill, right? Every entrepreneur has read Napoleon Hill. He's one guy who wrote one book that has not only impacted everybody who's read it, but it's impacted millions of entrepreneurs who will get onto podcasts and be, when people ask them, well, what was the most inspirational book that you've ever read? They'll be like, well, it's just Think and Grow Rich. I mean, how many podcasts have you seen with entrepreneurs where that is the first book they mention? So it's like there's an exponential effect of impact. And if you can really capitalize that, it really doesn't matter how many people are at your funeral, because you don't know how those three people or the disciples or the apostles are going to then spread that message, spread what you did to other people, your writings, your videos, your lectures, your seminars, whatever, and get that impact long after you've died. There's so much in philanthropy that people think is like, well, I'm giving to them right now to help them, like the library down the street is raising money for like a new roof. Okay, well, I'm giving the money to put the new roof on. Yeah, but like think about the impact of that new roof. Putting on that new roof is going to protect the rest of that investment for the next 20 years, right? So that the books don't get ruined, so that kids can have a safe place to go after school, so that people can continue to use this service. So again, it all goes back to that exponential impact that our actions have. And so
that's I like that. I mean, I do like that, though. I'm with you on that. Like, what we're doing, how is it going to, for me, I would say, how is it going to have an eternal impact on humanity on earth and then beyond that? And these are just challenging questions I think we all need to ask ourselves, because, it is a challenge. It is a challenge because, I've spoken at over 500 high schools in my time, right? And I asked this question, right? And the question I always ask is this. I say, so is there more suicides now than in previous years? And there is right now more suicide. I say, that is there more depression? Yes. Is there more anxiety? Yes. They'll answer. Are there less young men or women who have their dad living with them, their biological father, on a daily basis in their home every day, now or before? And they all raise their hand. Yeah. I go, you got all the stats. So the Think and Grow Rich philosophy, which I've never read the book yet. I got to read the book. All right, whatever. I'm open to reading it, right? I'm always open to anything. If you're not open to something, then you're probably too rigid, and you need to grow and open yourself up to really learn and grow, because you can learn so much from so many different walks of life. But like it, why we have more money, right? Like in this country running around than ever. Why is there more mental weakness? The obesity, as we know, is stronger. Why is that? If we have more money running around than ever, does the Think and Grow Rich philosophy work?
It does. I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised you haven't read the book, because you were saying things earlier that sounded very like the journaling thing, writing down your goals. Like, a lot of that is the Think and Grow Rich philosophy. And the thing I always tell people about Think and Grow Rich is every single person I know that is successful in business credits at least part of their success to that book. You can't, like, why would all these people with all the books available, and I could give you a reading list of great business books, but why would I bring up that book? Why would all these other leaders? It's not because we're all in some kind of like cult, like the Think and Grow Rich cult. It's because the lessons in that book are the foundation for changing your life for the better. It's the foundations of understanding what successful people do. It's the foundations of understanding what are the behaviors that you need to put in place in your own life in order to achieve the goals you want to set out. Writing down your goals, it has been proven to drive results. And it's crazy how when you don't do it, when you don't write down things, when you don't have the exposure daily to those, how often things won't change. You have to, it's kind of like pulling a boulder up a hill. Writing down your goals is like connecting a winch to it. So it makes it so much easier. Otherwise, you're like Sisyphus. You're starting at the bottom of the hill every day trying to push this boulder up, and you're never making any progress because you don't really know what the goal is. The goal is this kind of thing out there. So having a tangible goal to move towards, that's a lot of what Think and Grow Rich is about. There's also like the element of manifesting, which is often like completely misunderstood, to think like, oh, I can just think, Bugatti, and a Bugatti is just going to appear outside. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's about getting your mind in the right place so that you can start seeing the pieces you need to put together. That if your big goal is to drive a Bugatti, how you can make enough money to drive a Bugatti. It's about setting your mind to that particular goal so that all of a sudden, as you look at the map of life and the decisions you need to make, you start making the decisions that get you closer to that rather than farther away.
Yeah,
weight loss is a perfect example of that.
It's like what I believe, that what is impossible for human beings is possible for God. Like, so what you might deem as impossible, like if in my brain, in my heart, in my thoughts, in my spirit, if I believe that with God the Father I can do this, then basically, like, He'll make it happen. Like.
Well, the thing that kills me is, and Napoleon Hill talks about prayer in that book, and he's very, I don't think he pushes one religion or the other. He just talks about the practice of prayer. What kills me about people that poo-poo prayer or look down on it or say it doesn't work, what do you have to lose? Like, the worst thing that's happened is you're talking to yourself in the shower for 15 minutes.
That's the same thing as journaling to yourself or writing down your goals to yourself.
You only have upside. There's only upside, because if it works, right? If all these people that do it, that claim it works, there's only upside. There's no downside. You don't lose anything by not doing it. So that what I tell, whenever anybody asks me about prayer or meditation or reflection or whatever, and like whether it's worth it, do it. It's worked for me.
But why are we afraid? And I don't always talk like this. I just feel, you're a fighter too, so I kind of feel like I can, like go at it a little bit in this way, because I don't do this with every guest. I just so you know, you've given me a chance to have a platform to talk about these things because I trust you in this way. I really believe like that people are afraid right now to talk about God and their faith, don't you think? And I think that's discouraging our country. I think, like, when I get on podcasts, it's hilarious. Like, you could watch other ones, and if that comes up, which it doesn't come up every podcast, but most do, 80% of them, and you can see people are nervous. In our country right now, people are nervous to talk about faith. What's that about?
Well, I think there's kind of two mentalities that are on the opposite sides of the fence. I think the people that are opposed to religion feel like any mention of religion immediately is going to become a conversion speech, because a lot in the 90s that's how it worked. Like you'd open up the conversation on religion, and then all of a sudden you'd get the conversion speech. And a lot of Christians are really bad at that, because a lot of churches really push the idea that like you need to convert as many people as possible. That's your job on earth. And listen, if that's the religion you believe in, if that's your doctrine, then so be it. But that does create a lot of fear where when religion starts to get broached, like, oh, I don't want to do that because it's uncomfortable. It's a deep thing. It's a personal held belief. Don't want to do this on camera. So I think on one side, it's that of the person that's not religious that makes them uncomfortable. Sure. I think on the other side of it is that they've just been attacked for so long for beliefs that they don't even necessarily hold, because again, this country is great about lumping people into groups and just chastising all of them at once. It's like law-abiding gun owners and criminals. It's like they all get lobbed into one group. It's about if there's all corporations are evil, right? It's the same thing. We love lumping all these companies into groups. And I think that right there, because we like this tribalist mentality of grouping people together and saying they're all bad or they all did something wrong, those people that are religious, they don't really want to air that stuff out, because they're like, I don't want people thinking I'm gonna try to convert them, or I don't want to talk about because then someone might try to cancel me. I don't care. Like I try to be like, why else would I go on a show like this if not to tell people what I think, right? Yeah, that's my whole mentality. If you ask me now, there's certain things that if you ask, you know what, I just don't really want to take a public stand on that because it's a complicated issue and it's just not. It has nothing to do with my business. But I'll tell you what, prayers helped my business. So if you ask, should you do it? I'm kind of for it. Like, there's nothing you have nothing
like you said. My grandfather said that to me, right, Drew? I was 12 years old, and I was like, "Why are we going to church? Why are we going to pray?" He goes, "Look, man." He goes, "If I'm right, you're in trouble, buddy. But if I'm wrong," he goes, "if I'm wrong, then we just wasted an hour like once a week." So it's like, come on, man, just suck it up and do it. Is that the best answer? I was 12. For me, that was the best answer at the time. But I guess going into that, I want to talk about go back to entrepreneurship, and I have a different angle on this. So I believe we need entrepreneurs to encourage people, right? So what are the major encouragements we need right now? Because I don't think, and I'm gonna diss your guys, buddy. I'm gonna go read the book though, because I'm not gonna judge. I'm gonna be curious. I promise. I swear, Drew. But my big thing is this: the Think and Grow Rich philosophy has failed miserably from my belief system. Mm-hmm. Not the philosophy of writing in a journal, not the philosophy and believing in your mind, but the goal of rich, right? Now, if he has a different definition of rich, I might be judging him before I read the book. So I'm going to read the book and not judge him right now. But from what I know. Now, let's go back. I think we need
Justin, you are going to eat your words so hard. You're going to have to cut this whole segment.
If I eat my words, Drew, this is what I'm going to say. And you're not going to like what I'm going to say. But I'm going to tell you what I'm saying. Then he stole it all from Jesus. And he made a lot of cash. And he should go thank Jesus, because if he's the opposite, because guess what? The goal is, are there more fathers that are committed to their families and mothers committed to their families because of the Think and Grow Rich philosophy? Is there less depression and anxiety because of the Think and Grow Rich philosophy? Is there less hatred and more forgiveness? Is there more openness to truth and the reality of truth and kindness and compassion and self-control, etc.? I'm sure a lot of those things are talked about in the book. But I'm just seeing all these kids, there's just more and more less family. There's more and more less belief. So So how do we get more entrepreneurs to care about the next generation, not just from a money standpoint? And give me, maybe I'm wrong. Let it rip.
Well, I think the first thing is, and the reason I say you're going to eat your words is because rich
I'm
is
okay.
not money. Rich is, when you say like I've been blessed with many riches, that can be family. That can be
Sure. Yep.
impact in your community. It's a, again, the whole Think and Grow Rich book is about the mindset of success. And so I would argue that actually all of those things you said in terms of more fathers in households, less depression, for the people that have read that book, that have been inspired by that book, that follow that book, I would say, yeah, it has had a positive impact on
But
society.
are you honestly? Are you reading?
Yeah.
I'm just be real with me, Drew. Are you reading? All right, just be honest. Are you reading Think and Go Rich? Like in your brain, is everybody reading? Going, I want to be. I'm reading this because my intention is to be a great dad, a great husband, a great mom, a great leader. Like that. That's their focus.
I think there's a change that happens when you read that book, because what
Okay.
you realize is that the lessons of that book, it's kind of like Dale Carnegie's How to Win
Yep.
Friends and Influence People,
I
right?
love that book. I've read that book. That book's
Yeah,
phenomenal. But
it's
that's a
it's
Jesus
fantastic.
book. That's a Jesus book.
Well, of course, all of these lessons you can go back to teachings of Jesus. They're all going to have elements of this. But the big thing about that book is that they bury the lead, right? The idea of like how to win friends and influence people makes you think, oh, this is just how I can get more friends. It's just how I can persuade people into doing what I want. But that's not what it's about. What that book is really about is how to connect with people, right? But how to
For
win
sure.
friends and influence people is a way better title
Emotional
than how to
intelligence.
connect with people. So it's the same thing with Think and Grow Rich. It's the way I think of Think and Grow Rich is like a primer coat for success. It gets you ready to accept all of the other inspiration that you're going to need from a variety of sources that will help facilitate your success in whatever field you want to be successful in. So I look at it as like anything, and it doesn't have to be Think and Grow Rich. It could be How to Win Friends and Influence People. Any of these books, any of these seminal texts that have this
One
information that
minute
helps people
manager.
grow.
Do you know the
What's
one
that?
minute manager? Do you know Ken
Oh yeah.
Blanchard? Yeah, so he's like one of my mentors. I
Mhm.
meet with him 2-3 times a year, and then on the phone 6 to 12 times a year for years, for like 16. Now he's one of the old guy, the old heads, but he's where I would like reside in, like that world. Like, but no, but I like bringing this up because Drew, look, what you're helping me with and encouraging me on, this is where everybody's at, probably, right? This is where most people are at within the entrepreneurial world. And anybody who wants to influence anybody or make it, you got to understand what people are reading, what people believe in, what people are about. And like what you're saying, it's not just about making money. That's how you view it. And that's probably how most people view it. But what I'm saying is, how are we gonna set the next? And I think that's how I want to really close out this show. Like, how do we set the next? Because I'm always looking at the next generation. That's what I do. Because I want to influence young people. I believe you're honest. I mean this sincerely.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say every guest I'd want to hang out with my kids. I'm not going to go put them up on a board and judge them all, right? But I'd love you to hang out with my kids because I think you have a lot to offer and a lot of things that we're just so in alignment on. But what do we need to do for the next generation? What are the things that we as leaders, as mothers, fathers, friends, lead? What can we do? Because honestly, would you want to be that next generation, our grandchildren and great grandchildren? Would you want that?
I think what it really boils down to is that we need to get corporations and public services out of education entirely. Uh,
Okay.
I am a college graduate. I have a master's degree. I would happily the best thing that I got out of college was my wife and daughter. That is legitimately the only value I got out of that experience. because everything I use today, I learned online, in books, off of YouTube. So I do not think that modern college, I think when college was first established years ago, it was a great way to educate the masses. I think as technology has evolved, it's a huge waste of money. I think we need to bring back apprenticeships. We need to put kids right from high school, not into low pay, low skill jobs, because those jobs are going to be the ones that are going to be automated with robotics in the very near future. I have friends that are working on robots that will replace the entire back kitchen.
Give me an example. What robot? Like for what jobs? Give people
Food
listeners
service, waiters in restaurants. Like I have a friend who's building these right now for restaurants to replace waiters and waitresses. So we need to stop putting kids in these low skilled jobs, and we need to start training them on the job right as soon as they graduate. The other
what
thing
are
is
jobs we need to start training them on, Drew? Give me some examples. What are the jobs we need to train them on?
The jobs that still require human hands, and that's going to always change. So farming has got more automated, but there still has to be someone that runs the equipment, right? There still needs to be a human that repairs equipment. We're not there yet with automation. So those are the kind of jobs. Appliance repair is an unbelievably lucrative field, because nowadays appliances break down constantly because they're so cheaply made. They're made to be disposable, but a lot of people don't have the money, especially in this economy, to replace them. So what we need to do is we need to, instead of pushing all of these kids into college, and this is just the same thing Mike Rowe has said for years, we need to push kids into the trades. We need to push them into apprenticeships in corporate America, not internships, not work for free, real apprenticeships where they learn this stuff from the people that are actually successful, not a bunch of college professors who've never seen the inside of an office building. It's just not a good way to learn this stuff. The other thing is, I think we need
education. We need to revamp. We need to revamp how we look at education for our future generations.
We need to revamp not only higher ed, but we really need to help parents facilitate more homeschooling and schooling at home.
Have you ever been to a public school recently, like inner city or like?
I went to a public school for 3 years, and I went to private schools for a number of years. And I'll tell you, it's back then it was bad. It was bad 20 years ago. It hasn't gotten better. And so
my buddy goes to the schools. They're hitting the fire drill and closing school at least twice a month because it's just too much chaos. At least just because it's too much chaos. Yeah. And teachers don't know what to do. They're getting jacked up. They're getting beat up. Okay, so education. Anything else you'd say for the next generation that we need to take a look at? I love, so, people might not know, is I homeschool my kids.
Yeah.
But my kids are done. My kids are halfway done with college. Nah. And they're not like, people are like, oh, they're goof troops. My son's going to play college basketball. You know what I mean? Not that doesn't make him a goof troop or whatever. Like, but no, I look at it like this. Like, you raise your kids right, they'll be able to handle the challenges of society, homeschooling or not homeschooling. And I think homeschooling doesn't get a bad rap. So I'm all about homeschooling.
Yeah, I think the more parents that, like, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the success metrics, homeschooling is far more effective than traditional schools, and we need to make it so that more and more parents can do homeschooling and take a better handle of education, because the state isn't doing a good job with it, and it's costing us a fortune in taxes, and it's delivering really terrible results compared to all of the other countries who spend a fraction on education that we spend and get much better results. So we got to fix the problem. And there's no solution that I don't think involves getting the parents more involved in the education system. And so I think that's where you start.
Drew, parents, let's just be real here. Being a parent, and it's not about people caring, but people do want to be recognized. It's the truth. You know that, when you influence people, listening to them and recognizing them is one of the keys, right? I mean, nobody cares you're a parent anymore. Like, not nobody, but I'm saying like the majority of people. That's
who does care though?
Who does care?
Your kids.
Exactly.
You're not parenting for anybody else. You're parenting for your kids.
I love it.
So you got it. That's you have to put your kids first in everything. And if you are looking at both parents working, your goal shouldn't be, oh, can we afford a Disneyland vacation? It should be, how do we get mom to stay at home with the kids all day and do the schooling at home? How do we get dad to stay at home with the kids all day? How do we make it on one income so that we can take a better handle in their schooling, so that we can give them better opportunity? That should be the goal. It shouldn't be, oh, how do we buy a new car or go on a fancy trip? Because you know what? A 3-day vacation to Myrtle Beach is going to cost you probably, I don't know, $1,500, $3,000, depending on the size of your family and where you stay and all the amenities and restaurants. I guarantee your kids would much rather have $3,000 worth of just parent time at home. Because at the end of the day, they won't remember going to Myrtle Beach. They won't. Like,
I agree with that, Drew. So how can we create entrepreneurs like for this mentality to really create systems and processes? Like the system and process I have is sports is the belly of the beast, right? So we need to create facilities where we're mentoring parents, like workout facilities and sports, because that's where they're all going to go, because it's like the gladiators. So the vision I have is that we create a system of mentorship within the sports. And if you want to pay for your, you're going to get it $20 a month instead of $80 a month. You have to go through our mentorship program, parent or kid. If you don't go through it, you pay the big bucks. But if you go through it, your kids actually can go for nothing if they go through having an encouragement coach, which gives them a design or a plan for life. Now, I could fail miserably. But my point is, we need to start getting people to design their life and family life. And I love what you're talking about, Drew. I'm so on board this that I'm going to read that book by Napoleon Hill, because I want to be a man of my word. And then after I read it, like 8 to 12 months from now, I want to talk about that, as well as you thinking about how can we get one parent to stay home. I'm not going to judge if it's the guy or the girl. I think we need entrepreneurs to get moving on this.
I think you're right, and it's not as easy. But I'll tell you what, from my own life, we don't do fancy vacations. That's what we don't do.
That.
I don't do it because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't go out to eat at fancy restaurants. I don't drive a fancy car. I don't go in and buy caviar every week on my birthday. I don't go and play 18 rounds of golf every week. Like, I've made sacrifices so that we can do this. My wife has made sacrifices so that we can do this. But at the end of the day, the sacrifices are meaningless. The things we're sacrificing are, who cares? It doesn't matter. Like, I would much rather spend a quiet evening with my wife and daughter walking around the neighborhood than I would relaxing on a beach in Barbados. Because you know what I'd be thinking the whole time? How am I ever going to pay for this? How am I going to make enough money to pay for this? Thousands and thousands of dollars for the airfare, for the hotel, for the... Like, I'd much rather just bank the money, have the quality time, and live a much more peaceful life. So I think if the question is, how do we get more entrepreneurs? I think first we need to reset the reasons, the drives behind why you want to be an entrepreneur. The reason why you want to be an entrepreneur is because you want a safer and more secure life for your family. You want to be able to be in control.
I'm so encouraged right now. I'm going to jump through the screen, Drew. I'm like so encouraged.
Yeah, just it's again, if people have the entrepreneurial bone, if they have the drive, if they have the motivation, if they have the fearlessness that it takes, they're doing themselves a great disservice not following that. Because it's a rare quality, and it's the kind of quality that if you never activate it in yourself, if you never use it, you have no idea how much money you could possibly be leaving on the table. Like, imagine if Elon Musk just went the office route and just got an office job and was just a middle manager at some, printer company. Like, he could have done that.
Get Elon Musk to help us have parents at home to care for their kids. I want him to help us with that.
Well, he's not great with that, because he's a big proponent of getting everybody back into the office, which I don't agree with. I don't think people should be working in the office. I think it's a huge mistake for corporations to force people to go back to the office just because they have real estate portfolios that are now worth almost nothing because they can't unload it because no one wants to buy office space anymore. You know, one of the funniest things was, I'm going to pick on MetLife here because they deserve it. During the height of the pandemic, this is like the worst part of the pandemic. They had the gall to put on a webinar because MetLife owns a lot of commercial real estate. I don't know if people know this, but MetLife owns like a lot of the office buildings in New York City. And so when everyone was talking about, hey, like work from home's here and this is like a new world and we got to adapt to this and like this is here to stay, MetLife came out with a webinar denouncing all of that and saying, no, people don't like working from home. There's too many distractions. Productivity is down. Like, we need to get people back into the office, you know, as quickly as possible. And why did they say that? Because all their money's tied up in real estate and they were watching the values of that real estate plummet. Like, the idea that with all the technology, with the increase in productivity, and with the stagnation of wages in corporate jobs over the past 100 years, that we still need to be going into an office is insane. So if for no other reason, use that as your motivation to start being an entrepreneur. Because guess what? I don't go into an office. I work from home. It's wonderful. I get to walk down the hall and see my daughter whenever I want. It's great. So use that as your motivation. If nothing else, like, entrepreneurship is not this thing that is, you need to have $1 million in the bank to do it. I started with almost nothing in the bank, and I was able to grow this to multiple six figures within a couple of years. You just have to have the guts. You have to have the guts and the motivation and the tenacity to wake up every day and say, I'm going to put my nose to the grindstone and I'm going to keep working and I'm going to work long hours and nights and weekends and all of this so that I can provide the life my family deserves. Not the one that's shown on Instagram, the one they deserve. The peace and serenity and stability they deserve.
Well, Drew, I'm thankful for you encouraging family life. And I say that's where you've encouraged. We didn't know that was the route it was going to take, Drew. We were having fun here, encouraging each other. But I am so glad, and I want to thank you for being a great dad, a great husband. Like, honestly, like, that encourages me. You know, that's my, like, greatest gift is to be a father, you know, to have 5 kids. Like, if there's something, they always say, what's your red carpet? My red carpet is my wife and my kids. It's not like any of the films or books or awards or anything anybody gives me, like you said. And I hope all of you go to your journal today and write about how you're going to be a great dad, a great mom, a great friend, a great future dad. I have a kid on my team. He's never hung out with his dad. And he says, Coach, my dream's to be a great dad. And, you know, every time he said it, honestly, 100 times to me, 100. But that just makes me want to tear up. Because if all kids right now were trained and mentored to be great dads like Drew and great husbands like Drew, guess what? This world will be a better place. Thank you, Drew, for encouraging our guests. Hopefully you'll not, I know I get in there, we get fired up here. Hopefully you want to come jump on and be a guest again.
Absolutely, Justin. It was a great conversation. I appreciate you giving me the time.
All right, man. Thanks a lot, man. Hey, come back for more, but make sure you're encouraging people. I'm encouraging Drew. He's encouraging me to be better family people. You don't need that big vacation. That's what Drew said. Get rid of that vacation and spend time with your family. And if entrepreneurship will help you do that, it's worth it. The greatest entrepreneur in the world of all time. You know who I'm going to say it is. Drew even knows. It's Jesus Christ. Be a great entrepreneur. Stay strong.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Encouragement Conquers All podcast with Justin Fatica. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this episode with someone who needs a little encouragement. For more uplifting content, follow us on our social media pages. See you in the next episode.